has been moment after moment that are truly memorable, not just for the participants, of course, our Prime Minister and President Trump, but for our two nations. There has been an absolute bond shown to both of our countries and around the world between these two men, and they are in it for the long haul.
Good morning to you and good evening here, if you happen to be looking on from Washington. Now, the state dinner will get underway very shortly. In about an hour's time, we'll see Mr Morrison and his wife Jenny arrive here. This is the grandest of grand statements of the White House. You've heard the history. You know this hasn't happened for a long time for an Australian Prime Minister. It's only happened once before in the Trump presidency, so it is a big deal.
Well, and to put it into some context about just how rare this is, Gerald Ford, and he was president for less than one term, he, of course, had about the best part of 30 of these state dinners. Ronald Reagan had the best part of 50, so they are very sparing in the 21st century and very sparing in the age of Trump. But let me tell you about the next hour ahead. Well, it's a little bit red carpety, dare I say. The red carpet is some asphalt, but still, all of the guests that will be coming through, a lot of dignitaries. We understand that everyone from diplomats to billionaires, sporting heroes like Greg Norman and so many others will be coming right up behind us, because where you can see the road start to turn off or actually go straight through this area here, that is the entrance to the West Wing. You go into the West Wing, you'll turn, and that's where you'll go. The front gates, the colonnade, as it would be called here, very fancy, but still front porch, will be where the Prime Minister will be. Now, as we speak, he's currently with his wife at Blair House. His day has been, well, again, a highly memorable one, but he's had one where he's had most recently, in the past hour or so, some briefings from intelligence officials, defence officials. But let's get back to what happened while you were sleeping, because this is extraordinary. The pictures will tell a certain story, but we want to tell you what just happened just outside of the frame, because, Laura, there's an awful lot to see and talk about, and a repeat for Australians to be very proud about.
Well, the Oval Office was certainly the highlight. There was half an hour in there where the two leaders spoke in quite a relaxed manner. They bounced off each other. Donald Trump was dealing with some domestic questions, as well as really trying to show the partnership between the two leaders. Now, I reckon they were both in a pretty good mood. There were questions, there were tough questions, because whilst, you know, we've seen the pomp and ceremony here at the White House, the world still turns, and these are two world leaders, more so President Trump, that are dealing with some pretty hairy issues, one being Iran, the other China.
Well, to give you an idea, I mean, if you're a fan of Donald Trump, as I am, as a lot of people watching would be, is that he was in his groove today. He was in his groove where he had his absolute swagger at his best. He was out to impress, and he had somebody who was riding along with him in Scott Morrison. And not just blindly following, but being able to have substantive positions on China, as you say. A lot of discussion about Iran and where that goes from here. But over and over again, the relationship was being stressed. Now, to tell you about the experience inside the Oval Office, and we'll give you all those details because Laura and I were honoured enough to be able to do that on your behalf. We know that only because of your support we were able to be there today. But right on the Resolute desk, the famous desk that's been there since the Kennedy administration, all of those presidents, there was a statue made by an artist in Mudgee that represents the mateship between Australian and American soldiers. And there it was, front and centre on the most important desk in the world.
It was Australia's gift to President Trump, in fact, and this is an Australian hero that maybe not many people have heard about. He was a stretcher bearer who saved about a dozen Americans in the New Guinea War. So it's a wonderful story that both of them knew so well. And these gifts are really symbols of how well the two leaders know each other. I mean, with a pair of RMs for the Vice President, pair of Paspaley pearl earrings for the First Lady, and even a soccer jersey for Barron.
I love it. And a Kubra for their equivalent of the Secretary of State, the chief diplomat. But let's go back to where all of today started. Late night Australian time. You might have catched up with some of the details, but certainly not as detailed as this. Our look back at what happened while you were sleeping. It all begins with ceremony. It goes through an awful lot of chat, but all of it is quite memorable. Have a look at what happened today in the White House.
All the power and prestige of the White House didn't stifle the warm air of familiarity and friendship. The President, the Prime Minister, Melania and Jenny at ease in each other's company. Celebrating each other's wins and our shared success.
As General Monash later wrote, the Americans were ever after received by the Australians as blood brothers.
As I just said to the President, thanks, mate. I'm reminded of a story of a young American soldier in the First World War calling out to Australian soldiers for help to attend to the wounded. And an Australian soldier replied in the notorious blunt language of soldiers, which I will censor here. But he said, "Sure, Yank, I'll go. We're in this thing together."
It's a heady mix of military precision planning where nothing is left to chance. Children, though, aren't beholden to such protocols. Casting an eye over more than 4,000 Australians and Americans that cram the South Lawn, to the Oval Office, where in 2006, George W. Bush described John Howard as a man of steel. In 2019, Trump has gone one better.
I would say a man of titanium. You know, titanium's much tougher than steel.
The ceremony provided only a brief reprieve for a president and prime minister managing issues farther afield. In the Oval Office, President Trump announced the toughest sanctions on Iran to date, one step closer to military action.
1 minute, I could do it right here in front of you, and that would be it. And then you'd have a nice big story to report. And I think it shows far more strength to do it the way we're doing it.
The Prime Minister more tempered in his response. America did not ask and Australia did not offer to bolster more personnel and resources in the Strait of Hormuz.
We both would like to see a prosperous Iran. We'd like to see the people of Iran, well, let's see the people right across the world to be able to benefit from prosperous economies.
President Trump upped the ante on China, linking the economic trade war to a concerning rise of China's military strength.
Because if we allow China to take $500 billion out of the hide of the United States, that money goes into military and other things.
The Prime Minister emphatic in his defence of free trade as a pillar of global stability.
China's growth has been great for Australia, but we need to make sure that we all compete on the same playing field.
After a 1 hour behind closed door meeting, the focus remained on China and an admission that the trade war will be prolonged.
No, I don't think I need it before the election.
But Scott Morrison was assured the tariff exemptions we enjoyed on steel is not the last favour from our ally.
I did tariff relief with respect to a certain product in particular coming out of Australia, and that's something that we wouldn't do for anybody else.
The Prime Minister too seemed to endorse Donald Trump's negotiating strategy in order to get China to play by the rules.
This is, the new generation of deals I think we'll see China do, which the President has been working on, and he's been working on it for some time, and we wish him well in that process. There are some real serious issues that have to be addressed in that deal.